For this video, we're going to be talking about the big elephant in the room, whatever you want to call it, and that is going to be the SARS2 COVID-19 novel coronavirus global pandemic, whatever other terms you want to use. Essentially, what that is causing is an international travel ban. So here in the Philippines, they are completely disallowing any inbound international tourists. Pretty much in the middle of March, closer to the beginning of March, the country went on lockdown. No more inbound flights. And he started seeing a large exodus of tourists and stuff that weren't permanent residents here. But for a long time, there were absolutely no inbound flights. Today, let me look it up just to make sure I'm accurate. Today is Tuesday, October 6th, 2020. We have been on lockdown for, about 7 months, I guess. So essentially, over the last couple months, they are slowly now allowing certain people back into the country. This is going to not only include Filipino citizens, but also their spouses and their dependents. If you are a foreigner that is married to a Filipina, you will be able to enter the country as long as you have proof of marriage. If you are a foreigner that has a Filipino child currently living in the Philippines, you will be able to re-enter the country. If you are here for like diplomatic purposes, you should be able to enter the country. If you are trying to get in as a student or for some kind of a business visa or any kind of tourism visa, you will not be allowed into the country. And essentially the way it works is any of those people, you have to have some form of permanent residence here in the Philippines, and you will need to acquire your visa before you even get on a plane to fly here. But they are slowly allowing people that have lives and families here to come back. A lot of people, when this started happening, they started bailing out of the country because they didn't want to deal with the lockdowns. And for a long time, none of them were able to return. Even as of right now, if you have an SRRV, which is Special Resident Retirees Visa, or special whatever, it's for a permanent resident visa that you essentially, you have to pay a deposit to the government to get this visa. You're not allowed back in the country with that right now. They're slowly trying to work on getting it, but I mean, to me, it would make sense that those are the people that should already be allowed back in. You are a permanent resident here. You live here. For whatever reason you left, but you're trying to come back, and they are not allowing those people to return, even though you've paid a substantial financial deposit to get that visa. So right now, it's essentially, there is no tourism. If you're wanting to get information about the smaller, finer details of how all the quarantines and lockdowns and all that work, I'm not going to be providing it because I'm already late to the game in a sense. There are plenty of other people that have had really good information out there. Some of it might not have been 100% accurate, but they were doing the best they could with limited information. But you can at least watch some of these other channels and see how they've been dealing with it. But I'm just going to kind of cover how it's going to actually be affecting people trying to get here. So as of right now, again, no international tourism. For the longest time, there has been no domestic tourism allowed either. All hotels have been shut down. Majority of public transportation has been shut down. Their plans are right now, international tourism is not going to be allowed until the second half of 2021. And when it does reopen, that doesn't mean pack your stuff to come over here because there are limitations. So the way they're going to be doing it, and they've already started, is their plan is to start opening certain tourist areas here in the country in what they are calling bubbles. So for example, Boracay, big island resort area where all the tourists go from all over the world. They're slowly reopening that area to domestic tourism. Now, first off, the only people that were allowed to travel there were from the surrounding areas. Now, people from all over the Philippines are able to travel there, but there's a lot of paperwork and preparations required. You've got to go get a COVID test, you got to have a travel pass and all this different paperwork, but they are allowing people to go and travel as tourists to these locations. Other than Boracay, the other one that I know of totally right now is Baguio City. Baguio is a big city. It's up in the mountains. It's got a nice cooler temperature, so during the summer a lot of people like to go there. They totally shut down. They weren't allowing anybody into the city that didn't live in the city. They are now opening up for tourism, domestic tourism as well. There were a few other spots like 100 Islands and some of the other touristy type places that I heard were opening for short periods, but because I'm not seeing a lot of that in the news, my opinion is probably those places have been temporarily closed again and they're just waiting for their turn. But the intention is over the next several months, they're going to slowly start opening more and more of these small tourism bubbles only for domestic tourism, and they're going to be watching to see how it goes. With all the strict testing and observations that are going on in those areas, they're going to see if they're still getting, outbreaks, positive cases popping up. If it does, then expect all the travel bubbles to collapse, and again, who knows how long before tourism starts opening again. But if it starts going okay, if that method works, they can slowly start getting it to where as much of the country will be open to domestic tourism and travel as possible. At which point, again, probably the second half of 2021, they are going to start allowing in international tourists. But in the beginning, they're only going to be allowing international tourists from the surrounding southeast area region, and only from countries that are proven to show low cases of COVID. You're still going to have to go and get your medical clearances and tests and all that before you can come into the country. But let's just say the second half of 2021 is only going to be open to people coming from, say, Thailand and other places. As far as US, Germany, Canada, etc. being allowed back into the country, it could be 2022. We really don't know. And that's kind of the problem here, is nobody knows. Even the government, nobody knows. It's just a day-to-day, what do we do now kind of thing. As far as the other situations, the way this has been going for the last several months is every 2 weeks, the government will look at various factors such as rate of transmission, how many people are in the hospital, how many deaths, etc. And what they'll do is every 2 weeks, they'll make a decision for the country. Do certain areas stay the same where they're at now? Do we heighten their restrictions, put them back into hard lockdowns, or can we ease their restrictions a bit, let more businesses open? And this, again, this changes every 2 weeks, just every 2 weeks, over and over. There have been a few instances where a decision was announced, and then a few days later, they went back on it. So an area, for example, here where I'm at in Rizal, they had made a decision that we were going to drop to a lower quarantine status, which meant more freedom, more ability to go out, more shops were going to open up. You were actually going to be able to go out and get certain things. Within 3 days, they reversed that and actually put us into a harder lockdown to where you really couldn't even leave your house except to go buy groceries or medicine. So things can change all the time, and that really is the state right now. Is we don't know when any kind of domestic tourism, international tourism and travel here is going to apply. If you are married to somebody here and you're able to get records, copies of everything, you should be able to go to a embassy, consulate where you live and try to get that visa approved in order to get on a flight to come here. If you have a child here, you should be able to get that to come here. But I also understand a lot of people that are watching my channel, though, you've never lived in the Philippines before. Otherwise, why would you really be watching my videos? So a lot of that's not going to apply. Most of you are going to be coming here initially on tourist visas. So expect it to be quite a while. Now, if a vaccine does come out, it's not just as simple as that, because essentially what's going to happen is the country is going to have to do its own testing and approval of a vaccine. Then you're going to have to go through the whole distribution process. And then even after it's distributed, you're going to have to wait several months to see if cases start shrinking or not. There's a good chance there will never be a vaccine that is effective. If it is, it could take a substantially long time before it's distributed enough to actually be of any use. And even then, we don't know how that might change their ideas or opinions on reopening things. The country is going broke without tourism. A lot of people understand that the Philippines has a majority of its support and income is from tourism. By having no tourism here, it's really affecting the government's funds, businesses, etc. So it is possible within the next few months they might just throw their hands up and say, you know, sorry, but we give up. Everybody just go back to normal. I really don't think they'll do that for certain reasons I'm not going to discuss, but let's just say it's probably going to be a while before any of you are able to travel here. I'm sorry to say that, but at the same time, consider this an extended opportunity to go do your research, make your plan of action, do everything you need to do to prepare to live here. So obviously you're going to want to make a trip here first, but before you do even waste your money on that trip, there's still a bunch of information you need to figure out, a lot of research you need to do. And I'll be discussing a lot of that in my videos, but this is just going to give you more time to do so. Probably more time than you need, more time than you want, but still, you're going to have more time to, essentially take care of business first. Some of you might start watching these videos well after the whole COVID thing is done and over with, and none of it applies anymore. When I am making my videos about information, I'm not going to be including information about COVID, dealing with that, etc. Because by the time any of you can come here, most of the COVID stuff pretty much should be gone anyways. So it's not going to be applicable anymore. But I'm just putting this information out there so that you understand that it doesn't matter how many channels you go to and ask the question, when can I come back? When can we go to the Philippines? Nobody knows. And I guarantee you not one damn person on YouTube knows, because even the government doesn't. You can ask as much as you want, you're not going to get the right answer. The other thing is, don't buy your tickets yet. A lot of airlines are slowly going out of business. And we're seeing it now where a lot of airlines, people have been purchasing tickets. Those tickets get canceled because they'll buy a ticket. Even during the fucking lockdown, people are buying tickets. And for whatever reason, the airlines are accepting these tickets and issuing them out, taking your money. And then a couple weeks, month, whatever later, when that flight's supposed to go out, of course, restrictions aren't lifted, flight's canceled. They're not giving the money back because they don't have money, right? So a lot of people are having all these big issues of getting their refunds. Personally, my opinion, if we're still in a lockdown and there's an 100% announcement made that starting on this date, 100% you can travel here, until that happens, if you purchase a ticket to come here before then, you're a moron. You're basically throwing money down the trash because you don't know when you're going to be able to come over here. So why would you even buy a ticket not knowing that? Because it's a good deal? No, they're just trying to rip your money off. The other thing is you might be buying tickets to an airline that by the time everything reopens, that airline might no longer even exist, or they'll be going through bankruptcies and bailouts and whatever else. So you really just don't buy tickets yet. That's my biggest thing is don't waste your money, don't waste your time, don't start making plans. Just sit back, relax, do your research, and give it time. So hopefully this has been some useful information. Sorry if it's been some bad news, but it is what it is. So thanks.